um, being recorded for those videos presentation and also made accessible for all the users on the platform. So definitely take advantage of that as well. Once again, welcome to our How To Tuesdays and Wednesdays. With me, your host, Virgil as your brand success manager, and my wingman, my co-host, Dub Lake, sir. All right. It's a free space where we exchange on fundamentals on how to complete the process of launching an online venture or running an online venture with the more success, uh, chance of success on your side. So it's an open space. We usually start with a round of questions if you have any pertaining to your specific things that you're doing, hurdles that you have encountered. We'll start with that. They can be specifically on now side since we tend to all use the tool or across any of the tools that you're using. We will try to answer at best. If you have questions, you can either raise your hand, we'll open the mic so that you can ask your question or ask it in the chat. Go ahead, Dr. Lisa, shoot away.
Hey, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Question: does Now site allow us to put in page tracking links?
Page tracking links. Well, absolutely, depending on your approach, because you do have the option of you adding customized code to the platform. Let me just share my screen. I'll go into my Now site and we'll demonstrate that as well. So that would be where I would lead you first. When you're in the website builder, you have the gear setting here. And here you have add custom codes, right? This is usually where you will go to add things like pixel, so if I pronounce it properly, Facebook pixel, to track basically what is happening there. And if you have any other such code that you want to embed into the asset to benefit from its add-on, then this is where you come. This space is for everything that impacts the overall website code, right? When you are using the editor for page added, you can also use the HTML code there, the code snippet. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Perfect. That's going to
Thank
be a
you.
good subject of discussion for our meeting. I trust you got the email that I promised you received it?
I have to check. I haven't been on my email, but I'll let you know before this session is over.
Perfect, perfect. That will allow me to make sure that the process I've put in place works. And we will discuss. I'm eager to see that code and the end result of it. Very important in the end. Tracking is a big part of what you will be using, or tracking data, I would say is a big part of what you will be using to optimize your CRM efficiency or optimize any type of strategy you have put in place, especially when it comes down to the prospect journey or the conversion process. So it's important to always keep that in mind. It is part of that retention strategy that we're discussing overall. Okay. Yesterday, I started the reframing conversation with this picture, one of three, the last one, to anchor the fact that even though we have a very good idea of what we are trying to build after visualizing it, when we're actually going to conception, we are aware of certain rules that we have to apply. And this is important for us to always approach the conception of everything that we want with this rule in place. It comes down to that saying, trust the process, trust the process. But if you don't go through the book and you don't apply each process, each pages, well, you have a lot of chance of getting lost in that, right? So very important to keep that in mind. Yesterday, what we were covering our conversation for the first part for this approach to building your system or understanding what are the important values that make up your persona, the intended prospect, aligning it with your objective within the space, that you're bringing them in, so that you can actually track it and act on it when it's required, right? Let's keep all in mind to simplify the understanding of what is a CRM. Let's all keep in mind its end function. We're tracking the journey, we're personalizing the experience, and we are looking at specific triggers so that we can action and send that at the right time to them. This is very important. It allows you to level your understanding of what you're doing, because CRM, uh, as you have come to understand, I hope at this point, that you can build and apply for any specific environment or goal. As a matter of fact, in our previous conversation, I often suggested that in your strategy, you will be relying on more than one CRM, depending on what the CRM is geared to do, right? In this case, we were looking at something, CRM that was put in place for the goal of managing the community. So collecting data and interacting with that community based on these important factors that drive their interest, that guarantee their engagement, and that allow us to level them and help them, right? And through the flow chart that we had started with, we had pretty much came to understand that the points that we're following, at least for this one, are the same points that we're looking at establishing when we're creating this support hub, this ecosystem, this retention strategy, which is really where we start being able to consider scaling any operation, right? From the prospect contact to its onboarding, to its education, its recognition, its empowerment, its reactivation if it goes dormant, and the continuation of this cycle, right? This format does not change. Even if we're talking about a product, there's always going to be certain stages that have to be followed. If you're looking at a community that you want to empower and grow, you are looking at these specific steps. They won't change, right? As a matter of fact, depending on your persona, right? Just like when we are looking at a multi-service offer, depending on your persona, you might have a specific prospect flow chart for those ones, right? But it's always going to follow these steps. As a matter of fact, when you increase from a level, when you go from level 1 to level 2, there is going to be a form of onboarding in that new tier of service. There might be new tools that were not necessarily used or accessible in tier 1, level 1, that you will need to be onboarded for you to continue in your learning curve at level 2. So the onboarding can happen at many stages, right? But for now, we are solely concerned with the onboarding into a community. We discussed a lot about the onboarding in previous conversation. And here, across the strategy that we're going to be discussing, we're going to be solely relying on email campaign as the base of the automation, right? Of course, again, depending on the CRM that you will be using, you might have different options beyond the email to manage this relationship, right? Yesterday, we went over key factors. First and foremost, around the prospect profile, right? What information are we collecting first to build the prospect information in our CRM, is CRM personalized profile, but also what information are we picking up from them to know which type of persona, in a case, for example, like Dr. Lisa, where we have different personas, what type of information are we collecting at which point to decide which type of persona this is and which type of process will be matching for them, right? Or if it's about motivations and goals, right? I need to understand, okay, what motivates you or what are the aspirations so that I can set already from the get-go a learning curve. It could be in different cases, different requirements. For example, if we're looking at financial conversation, some of us are in the financial realm. Well, what are the key information that you need to start building up your CRM infrastructure based on that, right? Very important. We covered also behavior engagements, right? These are key factors that will come into play into scaling your interaction or scaling the engagement, knowing when to reactivate in the case, for example, of the prospect going dormant, right? This document is now available in the team section, so I definitely recommend we take a look at it, right? Today, what we're going to be doing is looking at the automation itself. So we covered a little bit of all these key things and where they belong to in the process. I recommend you take a look at it and start also looking at how you align your strategy with this approach, right? Today, what I want to be discussing is how we actually scale our journey. And this is where we left off here yesterday. We were going into the phases of automation. To make it a little bit more visual, I created a set of simple frame that we will be discussing. Before we go into that process, any questions so far? Clear on the board in the chat as well, Robert?
I just got this amazing invitation,
Hmm?
a Zoom chat invitation.
Sure.
Oh, but that was for the group. That was for the group. I got to keep looking. Okay.
Okay. Make
Sorry.
sure it's okay. If you don't get it, I will send it again. I'll check to see what might have happened. It could have been from my side. Check your spam as well. And it's I make image booking. So in the title. So I think that should help you search for it. Perfect. Okay. So few slides. But before we go into this slide, I want to do this reframing exercise or more share this conversation or this picture that illustrates a conversation that I was having with one of my mentees on the ground here. I am coaching that person to rebrand and launch their venture. And just like all of us, that person has a lot of interest, a lot of aspiration. And when I asked the first question that I always ask, what exactly is it that you offer, right? She gave me a lot of different projects. To reframe the conversation, I asked her, well, which one is the priority project? And can you, again, let me know more of what we are doing here? And each time I was asking her questions from that point on, we kept on going into different subjects of conversation around the other products. And at one point I asked her, I said, it seems to me that you have a very busy mind. That when right now there's a lot of things that are happening in your head at the same time as we are exchanging and we're talking, all right? She goes, yes, yes, yeah. I said, I imagine your brain, your mind inside of your head, just like this locker wall with a whole bunch of different cabinets that you open and store different ideas and objective and plans and such. And this is technically how our brain works, right? We have these different compartments where we put the different information, and when needed, we access them and get them to work, right? And now I said, now when I picture your brain and with your locker, I see you opening things, pulling them out, leaving them halfway open, and then opening something else, leaving them out while thinking about the next cupboard. But all these, right, remain undone, right? And you're trying to cipher through the process, but with all these things popping into the rear view or the front view in the back of your mind. Close all these open doors, open one at a time. Deal with what is inside, close it, go to the next one. And if you know while you're working on this cabinet, in the information there, that the next one to be open is the one above or two stores down, then you're set on your course, right? You're processing your work properly. And that's important, right? If we're talking about processing information, we can't be this type of mind where things are open, half open, ideas are floating in, polluting conversation, right? Things are something that you did great for this process, brings to mind things that you can do for the other process, and it becomes that beautiful brainstorm in your head, right? And this is where the lab comes into play because we stay there because every action is a winning action in this space, right? When you're in the lab creating whatever you create, it's fun, right? You fun around and find out. And to be productive, you want to have this approach, processing things one step at a time, right? And this is what we're trying to do here. This is the big takeaway. A lot of what we're going to be covering is going to feel redundant. It should because we've discussed it in one way or another. The idea is start putting it in the right process and the right framework. Go ahead, Robert.
I have to say it because it's pretty funny, but they're calling you Dr. Virgil in the comments here and saying that you're describing menopause.
Oh my God. I didn't. Well, things are all connected, I would say. That's how I would answer to that. This is foundational. Menopause. I never thought about that way. Well, good reframing. Change of mind, change state. That's good. Okay. So today, what we're looking at are different stages at which we're going to be automating or thinking about automation, right? Remember, very simply, when we're looking at our action tree there a few sessions ago, I told you, well, marketing acquisition is something that you tend to quickly be able to automate, right? Retention is something that you have an obligation to automate if you are thinking about scaling your venture, right? Because the bigger the amount of clients, the bigger the community, the more actions you're forced to take to maintain that ongoing relationship, right? So you have to automate. And in the middle, this is where there's a touch and go process depending on the interaction, right? So different spaces. And regardless of where you are, again, you have to consider the automation in a specific series of steps, action, reaction, right? Even when we're in the acquisition process, the 12 email campaigns, the 5 email campaigns, whatever length email campaign we decide is meant to generate an action, the opt-in into the next step of the process. If you opt in at one, you're not going to receive the other 11. You're no longer concerned with that series of conversation, right? And this is the same process here, right? In keeping with what we are looking at, the support hub as being the best way to flesh out the example in the conversation, we're going along that path. And I think it's very common for any community as it is. You have newbies, you have things that you have to do for them as they grow across levels. This is an activity that you have to track and engage with to continue this relationship, right? So I put this forward. Take a look at it. We'll discuss it, see if it applies to everybody or how it applies to a specific situation. Go ahead, Rita.
Thank you. Hi.
Huh?
The automation sequence. So when you say automation 1 and automation 2, and you've got onboarding sequence and education flow. So I'm thinking that your automation 1 is a series of however many, I know Blake talks about doing 12. So that's all of those 12 emails that you're sending out is automation 1. And then you're done with that one until you get a new member that goes in there. And then you get to, once the automation 1 people have finished that sequence, then they automatically go to a different email source which is now automation 2. Is that correct?
Okay, yes.
Okay.
I want to stop you here and we're going to reframe this properly. Yes, we are talking about email campaigns as being a tool that you can use to automate the process here,
And
right?
just so for me, and so I can stay with the flow.
Mhm.
When you say automation number 1, I might think, oh, that's email number 1. And then automation number 2 is email number 2, which is not the case. It is a series in automation 1 and a series in automation 2. So when I first looked at it, I was like, I'm not sure what that means, which prompted my question. So now I'm clear. Thank you.
No problem. I was going to set things in perspective before diving into each one of these automation stage. And it comes back to the flow chart, right? Remember, this is what we're doing. There's an onboarding phase, and this is going to require a series of interaction, a series of emails, a campaign, right? Education. It's going to require a series of interaction, depending on how deep is your education process. If you have one level, okay, one campaign. If you have 3, 4, 5, 6 levels, then there's a cycle of learning of education that kicks in, right? So in this framework, to make it simple, keep in mind that when we're talking automation here, it's beyond the tool, but it's the whole process, step by step, that you need to create, to turn into a flow that you can repeat. So that way it's on autopilot. Simple case scenario, for example, the first stage of automating this journey would be you having created a capture page, right? The capture page has them opt in into a specific email list that is now attached to a specific campaign, which will have the welcome email triggered by the automatic opt-in, right? The next one will have the onboarding steps, right? Whether there's a response or not, we're still going to trigger the basic training, the basic information now that you have opt-in, right? And then join the chat so that we can check up on your progress so far. Right? And this is from one acquisition form leading to that first set of automation. Right? It could be, for example, that you've built an asset with the first page, which is that welcome page with the opt-in form, which is tied to that one list. And then for the next pages, the next step in the journey of this person, because after going through this sequence of interaction, you're now going to the next part of our flowchart, education, right? Now, just like I've done for my support hub, right? I could have a specific page with another embedded form this time, keeping in mind the limitation that we have with NowSite, right? I could have another form with now more specific steps to take. As you have done your onboarding, here's a checkup form to rate the experience and to receive the next part of the education process, levels and all. Right? This is, for example, particularly important. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so once they finish with the first series of onboarding,
Mhm.
and I'm thinking about what you just said about the limitations with NowSite. So how do they now jump to automation number 2? So they fill out another form and that will trigger the next series. Is that correct?
Not only that, there's one important thing that your onboarding email sequence is doing, right? When we're letting them know, sending the basic training, we're letting them know exactly what they're going to have to do next, right? You opted into this form. This is your thank you. This is your welcome. Now, this is how we work the onboarding, and let's have you share a little bit more information so that we can customize and tailor in accord to our promise. We offer each time a tailored experience, right? So after the initial micro, I would call it, engagement by giving me your email and name for the sign up. I'm now going to send you another email series, the welcome, and this additional onboarding step. We'd like that you join you. Now we require you for a second stage commitment, right? And that would be that onboarding form where we can start collecting more data on what exactly you need, what you have pinpoint as being part of these, right? Values, facts that you have pre-established to rate them on your scale, right? Just like, for example, in the community that I offered, I ask you which scale, where do you put yourself? A newbie, level 2, level 3, right? Put that here. So that coming into the conversation, I know what level of conversation I make to expect from you and what you expect from me. Tailored, right? Very important. So consider these automation title, sequence of action after each stage of interaction with the client, right? Whether you can automate the whole process across the board without having a hands-on or having to step in, that you will see at the end of the cycle being complete. Right? How well do people adhere to the commands and how well they progress or how fluently, I would say, they go through the different points of your journey. And then you correct, you adjust. Right? This one is a little complicated for them or not. But in the end, this welcome email is meant to set the tone for everything to come. Right? Again, for example, in a case where we're looking at staged stage micro agreement where I need you to opt in for general information, and then I'm going to send you that conversion link that has you now opt in into the real CRM, the one where I can track the purchases and whatever exactly you're doing within the environment that you're bringing me into. Make sense so far?
Yeah, but is there a way for them to get out of sync? Like, okay, people who I'll read the first part of the book, but I'm going to jump to the last part or the middle because I want to move. So is there a way to keep them from jumping from, for example, the onboarding sequence to beyond the education flow? And maybe they want to come back to education because they realize they need what was in education to do X, Y,
You
Z. So,
see, I was about to answer your question, but you illustrated the answer right away.
okay.
Right? First, you can put a lock and key at every stage of your process as long as you wish. But then you said it yourself. Freedom is cool, right? Maybe they came here, they figured, oh, you know what? I want to go back there. They wanted to look. Sometimes you're like, you know what? I'm going to look at the end of the movie to see if it's worth watching from the beginning. Let me see how it ends, and then I'll come back at the beginning. And maybe I'm going to catch it at the beginning, flick to the middle, and see, well, is there progress here? Especially when you're looking for a good movie. Right. And then like, no, I made my choice. I like the few faces I saw. I like I'll kill a few hours with this one. Or series, right? You watch the end of the series and like, you know what? Wow. So it's the same thing. Freedom is key, especially when you're offering that to your community. You have the freedom to come in, to come out. You have the freedom to take things, to take a look at them. They're all offered freely, but for you to really follow the process. And it comes back to, I love this interaction, Rita. It comes back to this, right? We all are aware that there is a book, right? And we know that to really get to the core of the essence of the knowledge in this book, we actually have to read it page per page. Not skim through, not get the condensed version, not look at the end and then try to make up what is happening in the middle. Assure things for running around in the lab. I look at the end, I look at the movie, I look at the the beginning, I look at the end, I'm going to try to figure out what happens in the middle and wing it. Right? It's going to be fun, but is it going to be efficient? Right?
Yeah,
And
I see that sometimes when coach talks about apples and oranges and coconuts. Um, as he's referring to those, when people aren't aware of it and they say they have gone through the boot camp, they're actually telling on themselves because that they haven't seen it because they have no clue to what he's talking about. So it kind of makes them go back. So that's one of the things that it came to mind when that happened. So that's why I thought about locking them in. So you can't, but if you want them to have freedom and to make that own decision, like, okay, maybe I need to go back and look at it. So there's two sides to the coin. Okay.
freedom is the best side to pick because people will tend to auto-regulate themselves, right? And if they go ahead of the curve too fast, then they're surely going to need some questions when they hit the wall and all. So, well, did you check out because this is explained in module 2 there. Did you? Oh, no. Okay, well, your branding makes me think that you didn't take level 1 there because it's all over the place and you're coming at me with what's going on, right? So I'm scaling based on the data that I've collected. And one thing, before you think about what if, establish what is, right? So let's look at the ideal customer who takes the opt-in, goes to the process level per level, right? When he's done, I have the obligation to come in and guide him through the next step. So it dictates my frequency of engagement. And this is going to be part of the slides conversation because there's a timing there, right? If you're going dormant, is because for my timing, you're not reacting. Go ahead, Robert.
Well, just to add that to that, so that Rita really, I know she'll get this when I say it. The reason that we did the 5-day boot camp the way that we did, because we wanted it to be in order of things that needed to be learned before you got to that final thing, which was, how to post on social media to attract people, right? So if I'm talking to somebody and giving away 5-day boot camp as a lead magnet, if they say, okay, well, they've never done anything like that, then I'm going to say, okay, we'll start at video 1, right? But if somebody like Virgil comes in and says, yeah, I'm already a educated person and I already know what's going on, I'm going to say, okay, we'll start at 5 and work your way backwards, right? So it's all in how you align it. But yeah, have it open to everybody so that they can go wherever they want to, but you have to have some kind of order and semblance to the, or chaos to the madness, order to the chaos. And on that, I yield.
It comes back to what brings us in this space on a regular basis. We're talking about foundation, about basics, but yet in this room, we have a range of levels, right? Because by adhering to that specific what is as a general conversation, I can start tackling what may happen, right? When somebody has a specific um, question pertaining to the subject, but at a different level of understanding or execution, I pick up on that right away. We all do, right? Often enough, for example, to answer a complex conversation, I have to look at, okay, well, these are the values that across the board I will use for everybody to understand. Right? So there's this leverage here that I'm constantly applying because I'm in this chosen space. Right? If I wanted to start big talk, then we would be looking at ROIs, this and that, all these alphabet complicated jargon lexics that tend to create more confusion than bring actually clarity.
The other thing too about that is that that's all that work that we talk about on creating the system. And then also if you're doing videos, that creates the clones that you might have heard me talk about, right? And that's so that you don't have to sit there and repeat yourself over and over to, say the same thing over and over again. Well, here, watch this video, go to this, or see that email, or whatever the case may be. Maximize your time, minimize your efforts, so to speak.
Now, one of the things, for example, that we tend to get confused, or at first me, I was like, okay, well, what exactly? Tags are just labels that you put on things, right? The first segment, I tagged it as, well, it's the newbie. It defines their level, right? The next will have a different tag based on that achievement or that goal that I set forth in that space. And that will determine the type of action that I will follow with for people that are labeled under these categories, right? So this is just how you start labeling your action, right? That's it. The simplest way to approach that first, right? So first automation, onboarding. Second automation, in line with what we are called to do, is a follow-up on education. For example, you buy a VCR, you know how to set it and turn it on, and that's good. But then if there's really intricate functions that allow you to do certain things that you want to take advantage of, you start opening the manual and you start calling support. I'm trying to do this, I'm right? Education. You bet that from purchasing, go ahead, Robert.
I jokingly have to disagree with you, man. I just smash the buttons. I see what everything does.
Screwdriver. I think it's broken, but you just got it out of the bag. I think it's broken. Give me this. So yeah, sometimes we're like that. But yeah, and I was about to say, you can bet on the fact that when you have, for example, given your customer information to the company and they have logged you into their system, the moment where you call from that phone that you gave them, their system is aware of your first contact. It will dictate a specific set of things, right? Often enough, you call your bank and you receive an email. You just called us, and how was the experience with this guy? Tracked. Depending on how robust is the CRM that you're working with, these are things that you will be able to consider. But regardless, the next automation is kicked in or triggered by the prospect action, right? And just as you going into the complex stuff when you're trying to use a device, same goes for what we're doing here. I onboard you with the sweet stuff, the easy to digest stuff. When you're done, you're going to have to get more. At that point, you're going to come to me. That's going to trigger a response from me. For example, as simple as taking your name out of the list that is assigned to the onboarding and putting it now into the list that is assigned to the education and kickstart that email campaign, right? Most onboarding will have that call to action. When you're done, contact your trainer, contact your upline, contact this person for the next step. And that person will onboard you into the next level, right? Automation, too, as you see, will usually require the tag update. So I take you from this list to that list, right? Or in my Excel document, I mark this column as being achieved. Go ahead.
Okay, so once they complete one module, they will go to the next module, and you're asking for information before they move on, and you will have to manually create another, or maybe there's already in existence. Yes, there's already an existence automation 2, so you have to manually put them in automation 2.
Yeah.
In
For
the
example,
email process, they don't flow there automatically, but when you put them in that group, like, okay, you graduated from this course, you fill out the form, now you get to go to the next one, but before you get the email, I'll get some kind of notification, then I'll know to put you in that second group.
right? So let's put it this way. We got to be careful with module, right? Because module will come into the conversation when we're looking at the education flow. Module 1, module 2, module 3, and different stage of commitment and interaction required, right? At the first, I had you opt in as a commitment, and I'm going to let you know what to do to prepare for the rest of the conversation. For example, you just opted into the service. I need you now to answer these specific detailed fact about you that I didn't want to collect at the form, not to chase you away, right? We went from, are you interested in starting your business online? Do you need help? We can do it for you. Sign in. Okay, I sign in. Okay, you sign in. First thing first, set up your client profile so that we know who you are. Make sure to update your information so that we know where you are, right? Where we will meet. And then answer these few questions so we can tailor the rest of the experience for you. That is my trigger, right? Because once you act on that, I'm going to receive something. If it's the form that I sent you, and when you submit it, it comes back to me, or notification on my Google form, right? Things like that.
So this is, and I know you said it,
Mhm.
this is the rationale or one of the rationales behind when, if you are in a service-oriented business, by providing what the member needs. And if I use Legal Shield as an example, it just, here's a membership, go for what you know, this is what it does for you, to getting questions about what it is they may need. And if they will engage with you, you're not just leaving them like, sold your membership, I'm out. You're actually trying to either get them to get their will done if they haven't done so already, because it comes with the service. So just like little reminders, this is what you do. And so maybe that automation email could be only about the will process, maybe. And then the next one could be about once they come, yeah, once they do that, maybe it's about another process, but then they get to control the flow of what they want to know more about because of the questions that you were asking them in the beginning.
Exactly.
That's
But,
cool because that keeps retention going.
well, the retention process is actually built into your acquisition system. Again, you cannot talk about a funnel with that last leg, right? Otherwise, you have a bucket with a hole in it. You get people in and the water comes out and there's no retention, right? There's no scaling. So everything that you have in mind to do with this client is what you're walking them through from one process of automation to the other. I'm going to get to you, Dr. Lisa. There's something that I wanted to say so that I don't forget, because I want to use the Legal Shield example to better clarify what you just laid out, to simplify the process. Okay. So welcome to Legal Shield. We have many solutions. Sign up, get our information on what we offer, and decide what you need from us. That's the sequence in the first onboarding, right? You haven't committed to anything. Now, you having made all these offers or having these different services that are available will understand that, for example, if you opt in for the will service, I'm going to put you in the will segment of the conversation with the learning process to how to receive the will, how to prepare it, how to send it, or whatnot. If you decide to go to the mortgage education process, then you take that door. But each time you cross that door, that triggers a specific thing on my side because I've put alerts. For example, I sent you this email with three different services. These three different services will lead you to different opt-in platforms. You're not going to opt into all three, so they're not going to all ring at the same time. When you come in the first time, it's going to ring. You came to the big door. That's the opening of my funnel. Everybody comes there based on that interest. When you go through the process, I tell you, well, go left, right, or center, depending on what you like. And if you go left, that notification comes in. John that just came in to the funnel chose to go left, and he's going to receive this left-sided conversation, right? He came in, he decided to opt in for the middle. He's going to receive the middle-oriented conversation, and so on and so forth. So these are stages of the interactions, and they're the one that you cannot go around because you're going to need to onboard, and then you're going to need to educate, and then you're going to need to recognize and all that jazz as you go through the process. Even on the client base, right? Clients like recognition. Oh, he's a great return customer. After 3 sales, wings and bells. Woo, 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 woo. You get a discount. And everybody knows who you are. Great purchaser. We love them. Testimonials. Why are you buying so much? Milking the relate, not milking, building the relationship even deeper, right? So these are the things, but there are stages. First one is always the onboarding. And this is the one that we're very familiar with. It's the first one that we are called to set in. Set up your funnel, have that first email sequence so that it can get them to buy in. Once they buy in, they fall into the second part of the automation. Product education, product formation, whatever it is, levels. In this case, for example, when we're talking about education flow, let's say each one of your modules have 5 lessons. So that's 5 emails per lessons. And your education flow has 15 levels. That's 15 times 5. That's a lot of emails, right? So when you set it up, you'll know that every 5 emails, the client or the prospect has to send in his report. I went to school, did my homework. I'm going to take that test. You are going to assess the test because that's a trigger in your direction, right? Hey, Rita, I got your first email. I did the lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4, and 5. I love it. What do I do next? Book a meeting. We'll talk about it, and I'll send you on the other sequence. They don't have to be hands-off automated, meaning that when you start, they could, depending on how robust, again, is your system. But even if your system is robust, before you end up automating everything, I would have you manually go through the process with the first 10 clients so that you can review and optimize before you just plug it in. Because once it's plugged in, if the error happens, you won't know necessarily where you're losing momentum in the exchange. Where was the hic? Right? Remember that the rule that we established for the 12 email sequence is based on the fact that as many touches as we do, we tend to get them to react to something. Right? But once we add that reaction, we drive them deeper into the commitment because the reaction time is expected to reduce each time. If it took 15 days to get you to opt in, and my program is a 7-day cycle, right? Once you opt in, 7 days, I have to be talking to you. It lets me know if you're engaged, if you're doing the homework, if you're not, if you're going dormant, all these factors that I need. Right? Same goes here. If I'm sending these emails and nobody's opening, the whole list is dormant on the switch list. Right? So automation 1, onboarding. Automation 2, education. Right? This is where you start understanding, okay, these are the amount of interaction, or this is the length, the learning curve, the learning chart, the different levels that I need this person to go to be fully educated. Right? For example, in my case, 5 tiers from the newbie to the elite mentor leader. Well, there's going to be several levels, 5 levels of workaround, of engagement, of social proof action that I'm going to require for you to say, yeah, you get your certification for level 2. Go ahead, prosper. We'll see you at the end of that cycle to check if you're ready for level 3. You could say, you know what, I'm good. I'm going to go for level 5 right away. And then when you're going through the process, you're like, damn, these milestones are not easy to achieve. Maybe I need to double down, double back. And then maybe I need to ask, this is who I really am. This is what I've achieved. I thought I was at that level, but I'm not, or I'm seeing these difficulties. Let's bring you back a few stages. Let's make sure that, right? Managing that relationship, right? Very important. Next stage, the recognition, right? That's part of the process. That set of automation is something that we actually just addressed a little bit in between the modules, right? I'm sending you to complete the first module 1. At the end of that, there is going to be a recognition alert, depending on how robust is my system or how I envision that. When you submit, I correct, I rate you, I announce, I give you a rollout. Here, you just passed the test. It's great. You're now ready for the next level. I'm going to let the community know that you did achieve to motivate others to do so. Send recognition, send update leaderboard, give your XP in this case, or give that value for the achievement. Because if you don't give any value to the achievement, they don't get any value from you, right? Recognition is it's the most cherished, desired form of accomplishment that you can get, right? These brings back to these artists that I'm mentoring, I would say now, I tell them, this is what you are all gunning for. That recognition, being on the stage and knowing that the audience heard your emotions to each words, connected, and say, I recognize this. I feel that you're singing my story. You're strunging my heart with your words. That's a word from a song. I know it's not mine, but that's the truth of it, right? And it's the same thing with us. With your interaction, with your constant support, you're driving me to success, right? So there's a touch base, there's a timing that you are assessing to be the most optimum time between reaction and action, between you and the prospect, for them to progress. Hence the recommendation to build one complete process or take the time. And when I say build one complete process, is focus on one and build it completely before trying to scale it to many more. Because once the bone of the structure is there, once the skeleton there, you can again flesh it out, dress it up in a different way. But these are things that in the end, you will have to deal with across managing your community. The dormant automation as well can kick in after level 1. This guy was supposed to complete this program in a week. It's been 3 weeks. Either his computer is broken or he went dormant. I need to, right? If you have a system, for example, like Robert is building, and we're looking at the frequency at which you're checking in to do work, and 30 days no login, well, what's happening? We need to reach out, right? We missed you. What's happening? Your input has not been received, and we share that objective feedback. Let us know what happened, right? There are already case scenarios that you would have mapped out to address this or trigger the response. Just like yesterday, I think it was you who said, I have a group of 20, I need to send an email, send a note, see who reacts. That's already something. They're there, they're active in the community. They pay attention, they react. Great. Have they completed the form? And what this form information told me, I now need to act on it, right? So the level of CRM and interaction with these type of it's very hard for me to envision these type of cross interaction with your activities. Hopefully that's the problem that Robert is looking at resolving for us, so that when you're acting on one side of the fence over there, you're getting that notification across, or you can act on everything. And that will allow you to start saying, well, I can automate this because everything ties into the same ecosystem. But since we're using different ecosystem, it's really hard to automate everything across. At one point, we're going to have a handshake, a handover of information. Go ahead, Robert.
Well, I'm just glad that you mentioned that, and that's exactly what I'm working on.
Got your back, brother, got your back. And it's a genius idea, right? Full on support of it. And I can't wait to see it happen, right? It's to get to that level of achievement, again, it comes back to understanding the stage of addressing and processing the overall functioning of your organization. A lot of pieces. Go ahead, Rita.
Okay, so the little conversation you guys just had, this is like not a cookie cutter, excuse me, for everyone, but you can find something to adapt to whatever product or service you offer. Is that my understanding of the conversation you guys just had?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay. What the different this what is not cookie cutter is these different tasks that I've gave myself. But what is formatted across the board, whatever you do, and I stand and are ready to challenge on that is this prospect chart. The
okay,
prospect comes in, he has to be onboarded, he has to be educated, even if it's just a product, he has to be educated on the product. If there are things that I have in mind to make sure that my community stays actively using the products, recognition, sending some testimonials, thank you for your purchases, whatever it is, this happens here. And of course, in the objective of growing and keeping my business alive, my customers have to be all return customers. Even if it's a product that I'm sending that requires an update, a yearly update, I have to have this reactivation of this engagement, right? So whatever it is you're doing, you can't escape this chart.
okay,
Go
gotcha.
ahead, Robert.
Yep. So
So
this is the map, and then you adjust it to whatever your automations are adjusted to whatever your service or product offers or whatever you're trying to accomplish, and you can put them each underneath one of these seven, I think seven, two, four, six, seven steps, 6 steps. Yeah. Okay.
The automation that we're discussing is happening at each stage.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. And these are what you're calling the stages, the onboarding, the education, the recognition. Okay. I just need to be on the same vocab with you. Okay, thank you.
and
Documents are go ahead, sorry, Robert.
I was going to say to put a lock in or a key into that lock, right? The other thing to think about while you're doing this or creating it is what are the problems that you ran into that you can solve, right? So there's a little bit of a variance here too. I want to be clear on this. And I'm not saying I'm smarter than anybody or anything like that. I just ended up taking the time to learn a little bit more about having more of my own control on things, right? When it comes to the video and production and websites and all that stuff. We can do a lot of things with NowSite, right? We could certainly do that. But then once you get to a certain level, you're going to want your own domain. You're going to want to be able to control everything that's on there because you do have limitations, right? But ultimately, the system that you create, like he's saying, you could create one system, and once you know how that system works, as I always say, then it's nothing more than conversations. You now make sure that the system works the way it's intended, fine tune it, and then now you have that system. You can create another system like that for anything that you're doing, right? So you create multiple systems for whatever it is that you're doing, i.e., health and wellness here, legal shield here, whatever those things that you're doing. You're just creating systems for each one of those. Each one of those should have the thought of how is the prospect's journey? What is their onboarding, right? What is the welcome? How do they set up their website, their profile? What's the education beyond that? Well, you got to go here to download this, right? Take a look at the back office and got backup. The videos are there, yet nobody wants to watch them, right? Even the information could be there. People don't want to watch it. So that's where those emails come back or hey, you haven't done this yet or you haven't checked off that. If you could track each one of those and help guide them along the process, and now they're checking in at each space or you know jumping onto another list, you can literally now see that action that you're talking about as an example of moving them between look, try, or buy, right? So it's all about creating those systems. And then throughout there, you go through and, hey, recognize those people. Hey, you got to such level, give them empowerment. Hey, who's ready to take on the next class or who wants to, share what information that they've learned so far? Check in, reactivation. Hey, haven't heard from you in 30 days. Where are you at? I missed your face. That's one of my favorite things because I miss seeing people. And then what's back to the flow? Back to what's the prospect's journey. Make sense?
There's one thing that you said that made me think about why. Why is it that people don't watch these videos? And it comes back to that mm, change, state change, or mind frame shift that I want us to adopt. It comes back also to this value, speed, duplication, right? We hear that one a lot. And I got to think that maybe that's why we tend to speed through the process and try to scale quickly without having understood or hammered the system. Change that concept to system and duplication. System and duplication, because your speed is achieved when you have established the optimal system, right? You can't speed through mud.
Well, I can also
System
say
duplication.
that you're not going to really have any duplication until you can teach people what they need to know to create that duplication to begin with. And then when you go back to your apples, oranges, and coconuts, just know some are going to be easy to work with, some a little bit more complicated, some just won't do anything. That's all part of the game. That's all part of the sorting, filtering, and stuff. Just focus on the people that want to be there, the ones that show up. Those are the ones that will, take the most action. The ones that are sitting there as B's or C's, those are the ones that you follow up with. You talk to them once a week or once a month, whatever it is. Take your C's to B's, quicker your business is going to flourish. And
That
on that,
that
I
was
yield.
actually
Have a
that was
fantastic
actually
weekend.
yeah, I was gonna add something because that was actually the perfect example to illustrate what framework we're building this around, right? Apple, oranges, and coconut. If you have to build a system, you have to pick one of these client archetype and build it. We usually build with the apple in mind, the one that will ideally follow everything from A to Z, right? He's going to react sweet. And then we start planning, what if he turns out to be a coconut? What if he grows a shell and turns into an orange? Now, these are the cases, the other wings, the other legs that this process will take. There's actually two slides to that to illustrate this, because when the empowerment comes in, it could be because he went dormant, right? It could be because we're at a reactivation stage. It could be because we're leveling, right? So this, as Robert said, depending on your overall activity, will take different branches. But the basic construct is these ones that we have at the beginning. Go ahead, Robert.
Hey, one last thing, because I know we're 3 minutes over and I don't want to keep everybody. But I'll tell you, as somebody that's grown many, many teams, the the reason that I say stay close to the fire is important. And if you have teammates, you have people that are in, they jump in, and then all of a sudden they start disappearing from the fire, those are the ones that you need to reach out to and say, hey, how's it going? How's your day going so far? Right? I'm telling you right now. Because the ones that aren't showing up, I know this may sound kind of crazy, but the ones that aren't showing up are the ones that need the help the most. The ones that are showing up, they're at least showing up. Eventually, that's going to sink in. They're going to take action. They're going to see it works. That's going to boost their confidence. They're going to say, hey, I can do this. But if you never show up, you're never near the fire, you're never going to know that you can actually accomplish what it is that we're talking about. Right? So that's all I got. And on that, I yield. Have a fantastic day and weekend. Toot love you. Bye
Great.
bye.
And see you on Monday. Never forget the last translation on Monday. This is where all starts, right? Have a great one.
Bye, everybody.